Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Maverick News channel. We have a stacked program for you tonight. Kevin Michelizzi is waiting in the wings. He's going to come on and talk about Russia's decision, Vladimir Putin's decision, to conduct training exercises or drills or something to do with non-strategic nuclear weapons in the vicinity of Ukraine. He'll explain, and I will ask questions. We have ongoing protests at university campuses. Dragon will be joining us live shortly from McGill University. And it's Holocaust Remembrance Day. All that happening while we also hear about a ceasefire deal that Hamas has accepted, and it looks like Israel is rejecting. Why? We don't know, because the details have not been released. We'll explain more when we come back on the other side, and that is when Kevin will join us as well. So, don't go away.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
And we are back, and joining us is Kevin Michelizzi from Crimea. And there is a lot going on where you are right now. Bring us up to date. You messaged me and said you had missile attacks there?
Yeah, we had incoming missiles about, I don't know, whenever I sent that to you, for air raid sirens for about a half an hour. Turns out we had 3 cruise missiles headed towards the Kerch Bridge, but how far they got before they were shot down, I'm not aware of. It's just early reports on that.
Well, we'll have to check back with you at some point to find out what the real information is. But we're really here to talk about tonight is this alarming information that came to light overnight involving, I guess, these exercises involving non-strategic nukes. What do you make of that, Kevin?
Well, it's interesting that this warning came out when it did. This is the eve of Vladimir Putin being reinaugurated as president of Russia, and tomorrow his entire cabinet will be dismissed. This is according to Russian law, and he will have to reappoint his cabinet. So timing seemed a little strange on this, but it's likely it came up due to rhetoric from the West. So what did we actually have going on? Well, Putin made this mistake that they're going to be training for the possible use of strategic nuclear arms. And
you mean non-strategic?
Non-strategic. Nuclear. So yeah, little nukes.
Mini nukes.
Mini nukes. Now, I prefer no nukes. Big, little, whatever. It will not be a great effect on the.
I'm gonna stop you for a moment, Kevin, because your audio is glitchy. And we've been having some weird stuff happening here over the past, 2 days now. Last night, the entire broadcast was shut down after not firing in the beginning. There's weird stuff going on. I'm going to ask you if you wouldn't mind to sign out, sign back in. We'll run a little promo, and hopefully we can fix this audio glitch because it's all coming out weird and digitized. So let's see if we can fix it. And I'm sorry, folks. The gremlins are at work again tonight, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
Maverick News. Fighting for freedom.
Okay, and I'm sorry that the whole broadcast was just destroyed last night by whatever was going on. It was weird, but the entire system here shut down. I don't know if we have a virus or what. I've scanned everything. If we got hacked, I don't know, but it was really, really weird last night. Hopefully we're free and clear to continue broadcasting tonight, and Kevin is back. Hopefully the audio is better.
Well, let's find out.
It is a little bit better, I think.
Sing you a song. I don't know.
Yeah.
Make it an entertainment show.
So back to these non-strategic nuclear weapon drills. And you said that it appears to be a response to statements coming from, as I read it, certain U.S. officials. That's the way it was conveyed in an official statement from the Kremlin.
Yeah, that was the official statement. Certain individuals. And, let's kind of take a look at, what this means. I mean, it means the stakes in the global game are rising. I mean, it's not just here in Russia, but, face it, looks like we're in World War III right now. We got Israel and Palestine, Hamas. We've got all this Cold War rhetoric going back and forth about, nuclear missiles and stuff. So likely on the eve of Putin being re-inaugurated, new cabinet being installed, this is a show of force and a public message to, like you say, the certain addressees, and realistically it is a training for, potential use of these cotton picking things. And of course, it's another negotiating instrument for Russia to use in the conflict. So, we've got Ukraine trying to drag Moldova into the conflict, and so they want Moldova to know that these missiles could come to their military installations. And there's been the Kremlin, guys, their Lindsey Grahams out there already today stating that these tactical nukes can fly across Europe all the way to the United States. So that
is that what they're indicating, that the tactical nukes can be used against the United States on U.S. soil?
They're claiming that they can fly tactical nukes all around the world if they have to. And that would be installing them on these, long-range, hypersonic missiles with smaller warheads, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So,
this seems very destabilizing. When you back in the old days, You had mutually assured destruction, MAD, ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles on both sides, Russia and the United States pointing at each other, and knowing that if one side launches, the other side will launch almost immediately, launch on threat, basically. And so there's just massive deterrent on each side. But now with the introduction in these modern times of tactical nukes into the equation, not that they've been used at this point, but it injects a whole different scenario when you war game it out. Do you think these guys think they can actually use these tactical nukes on a limited scale and get away with it without having the entire world blow up?
Unfortunately, I think the United States has been thinking they could. Excuse me. Now my audio is glitching. I think the United States for quite a while has been, throwing rhetoric about possible use of them and in a winnable nuclear war. So, I think this is more of a warning. I don't necessarily think it is a threat to actually use them, but couple interesting things about this. This announcement was made on, two occasions, like I say, the re-inauguration of Putin, and the other was, there was great hope that, Chinese President Xi Jinping would arrive in Paris, and Macron would talk to him about using his influence to get Russia to either negotiate or back off, whatever. But this is the day he arrived in Paris. And, he's been talking about sending troops to Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Now, I see a lot of rhetoric out there, even in, the chat right now, that France has sent troops to Ukraine. That is not true. They've made statements that they were going to. They actually have released a statement saying they have not. But I want to look at this a little deeper about this threat. So this comes out, and all of a sudden, we have... I have no voice today. So, is the threat working? Poland today, their Minister of Defense announced that they are not preparing and will not send troops to Ukraine. They're the guys who are constantly talking about let's send troops and, help Ukraine out. The United States released a statement saying that they recognize Vladimir Putin as the president of Russia, and they reiterated that they will not send troops to Ukraine. The UK, the British ambassador in Moscow was called into the foreign ministry today, and because they said that Ukraine had the right to strike Russia and Crimea with British weapons, and he was warned that the response to these strikes using British weapons could be any British military facility and equipment in Ukraine and beyond could be hit. Now, France, they were summoned as well, and, they were warned about their, increasing statements about the country increasing their presence in Ukraine or deploying troops to Ukraine. And, they were told about how this would be a destructive and provocative line for Paris to take, leading to further escalation of the conflict, possibly on their military targets in Ukraine and beyond. And, let's realize that, NATO has troops there already. They have officers that are, training and directing operations in Ukraine, and but these are, according to the Kremlin, doomed attempts.
Doomed
So
attempts to
to
prolong or continue the war.
prolong, yeah, not to get involved.
I see. Yeah, and I mean that's that's what I'm reading, in some of the other online forums and so on. Some of the more prominent pundits out there saying that this exercise is really meant to serve as a deterrent to NATO, so that it sends a message: don't send troops in here.
Yeah. So I think the first guys to watch will be France. What does Macron do? The Chinese president and Putin are close personal friends. They have continued to support in a somewhat neutral fashion, calling for peace negotiations. And, I don't think Paris is going to get what they wanted out of his visit. Again, we'll have to see what happens tomorrow. I'm sure there'll be some announcement, but no, I also bring up Putin's inauguration because an RT source, this isn't something that I verified, but one of their sources has said that they have information that Ukraine is preparing a massive strike on Russia starting at 6 a.m. our time, May 7th. So the day of his inauguration, to disrupt that. They have been warned by Russia that they best not do this. So, it could also be related to that, but they're saying that they have inside information, we know how reliable that is, that there will be an attack by, 50 to 100 drones and dozens of long-range attack missiles, or their, Western European analogs, and that they first plan to launch the drones to try to use up air defenses and then hit a target that has been agreed on with their partners in advance. And we know that probably means the Crimean Bridge. Tonight was kind of a test with 3 drones, and so I think the timing of this may be related to that as well. It's going on May 9th here, so they're expecting big attacks somewhere between tomorrow and May 9th, where they have the big military parade in Moscow and all that. So,
Right. So, just because they're conducting drills does not mean that they actually have tactical nukes stationed there. They may not. How much of an escalation is this? Do you think this is all about optics, or do you think that they are actually moving nukes into position for the possible eventuality of a limited nuclear war, or what they hope would be a limited nuclear exchange?
I think they have all along had these nukes around. Where specifically, I know they very likely have them, in the Southern Military District where this exercise will be conducted. And that is specifically the area that covers Crimea. So, Crimea, the annexed regions, the Krasnodar, Sochi, that whole area is all Southern Military District. One of the differences with Russian nukes and what the United States has is the United States has theirs all in fixed silos in the ground. Russia's are all mobile, so they can move those things around pretty darn quickly. Now, do they have some fixed ones? Probably, but
So yeah, so these weapons, they're not as powerful as like an ICBM carrying multiple warheads. It's not that kind of weapon.
Yeah.
So these things, from what I understand, have, they're like a fraction of a kiloton to maybe 50 kilotons or something like that. So what kind of damage do you think these would do if say, one was detonated?
I think a lot. 50 kilotons is a lot. What was the size of the bombs dropped on, Japan? It's going to put radiation into the atmosphere at a minimum.
15 kilotons. I just looked it up.
How many?
15.
15. Okay. So, what damage did that cause in Japan? Well, quite a bit. It was limited to 2 cities, but then you've got the nuclear fallout. You've got people, for years being affected.
So these are actually bigger than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. 15 kilotons on Hiroshima. These are up to 50 kilotons, and one warhead from an ICBM is about 100 kilotons. So that gives you some perspective. So these things, even though they're mini nukes today, they're like
big boys.
Yeah, they're over twice as powerful as a bomb dropped on Hiroshima.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, you drop one of those things in Ukraine either side, and I'm going to hope that the wind blows, going north for the next 50 years. So, it would be devastating to a large area. It would affect a good part of Russia. It would affect Crimea, Belarus, all the bordering, former Soviet republics, and possibly, followed as far as, Western Europe, Germany, all the guys making threats,
Yeah. Well, I was watching John Mearsheimer. He was doing an interview with, might have been Piers Morgan. They were talking about this subject. And I like Professor Mearsheimer. I think he's right about a lot of things. The one thing that I found alarming, though, was, when he was talking about the way this would war game out for both sides, he indicates that he thinks Russia would look at the possible use of these weapons in Ukraine as something that could be used as a tool, and even as a deterrent, even if deployed, because they don't think the United States would respond. And I have to say, I think that's a miscalculation. I think that's wrong, because you nuke Ukraine with a bomb that's has twice the power of what was dropped on Hiroshima or Nagasaki, and people will demand a response from the people of Europe. Will demand it. The people in the United States will become so fearful that they will demand it as well, and it won't take long. I think that's a huge miscalculation. And, Professor Mearsheimer said he doesn't think the United States would respond because they would not want to risk, say, New York City or Los Angeles in a full-scale nuclear exchange, so they wouldn't want to escalate. I think that they would see that as being they'd be so afraid, and the public would be so ramped up that it would be inevitable.
Yeah, I would not lay money on that bet that they wouldn't respond.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not the only guys who have nukes that could respond either. If we've got nuclear waste and fallout blowing over some Western European countries that have nukes, they could respond. And this whole thing of a winnable nuclear war is just an outrageous statement. if you're talking Russia and the United States, limited nukes could be theoretically winnable by one of them because it would contain the fallout, on one continent or the other. But, it is a potential potential world-ending event. I mean,
I think you push the little button, you might as well push the big one. One of the main reasons is when it comes to any kind of crisis, catastrophe, even a minor hiccup in the stock market, human beings always tend to overreact in the beginning. That's human nature. You see it when the stock market starts to go down, people panic, and then it really plummets. And then on the way up, it doesn't matter what it is, what crisis it is, people flip out. Look at the pandemic, right? Major overreaction. The whole world got locked down. So what do you think is going to happen if you drop a 50 kiloton bomb, nuclear weapon, anywhere? People are going to freak out and demand a response.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they're not looking at Japan and saying, well, the United States did it then and nobody responded. But at that time, there was only one set of guys who could respond, and they didn't, fortunately. Mm-hmm. And of course we were allies at the time. But I don't know. I would not go there. I think Professor Mearsheimer is incorrect on that. I think there would be a response, and you've got one guy spitting in the eye of the other, and then that guy punches, and then next thing you have an all-out fight. So
yeah, and you unleash that kind of weapon, and the other side, well, now it's okay for them to use it too, right? In fact, they'll feel they have to. So if they don't respond by launching nukes directly at Russia, they'll certainly deploy them. I mean, where if with weapons of that magnitude, they're not going to drop them on Russian troops in Ukraine. I wouldn't think they're going to go straight into Russian territory with them. I would. They won't stop there. They'll. Yeah.
Realistically, if they use nukes, Russia using them, they're not going to drop them on their own troops either. Mm-hmm. So I think your targets are going to be Lvov and Kiev. I think those will be the two targets. I think it'll be another Japan thing again. I think it's going to be two cities, and that's what they would drop them on. Now, and another interesting thing is Ukraine was supposed to have elections this month, and they aren't. So Russia has already said that, effective, March 20th or 17th, whenever they were supposed to have elections and a new president in Ukraine inaugurated, even if it was Zelensky again, that they will not recognize him as the legitimate president of Ukraine anymore. So now their promise of not killing the Ukrainian president doesn't necessarily hold true anymore. Now, the other thing that concerns me in this escalation is Russia does not have a first response policy like the United States. Russia has stated over and over and over they will not be the first one to use nuclear weapons. They will only use them if they're used against Russia. So, I hope that they don't break their own law and use them, but it could be.
All very worrisome, and we have a guy in the White House right now who, even when, if this is a guy who if they wake this guy up in the middle of the night and ask him to make a decision, and he only has, as I understand it, if you're talking about the ICBMs, he has 6 minutes to make a decision on whether he's going to launch back. And when he wakes up, he's still asleep. So we're in deep crap. if he's the guy with the football and has to decide what to do with it.
I think the only decision he would be capable of at that point is, do I run or walk to the toilet?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure he could make that decision.
Well, I would think that they've already war-gamed all this stuff out and they know immediately what they're going to do in a variety of scenarios.
Absolutely.
And they've war-gamed it out all the way down the line, so they already know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which
And-
also suggests to me, and I think I sent this back to you, I think that there's a lot more going on than we are being told about all of
true.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. Reality is, we will never know the truth.
That's true. That's the truth, is we won't know the truth.
Yeah. I honestly believe this is just a warning to the West. The West has, been putting forth a lot of rhetoric about putting troops in Ukraine, and I'm praying at least that it is simply a warning. That's all we can hope for. That we have the capability to remember that. They've actually said that publicly several times. The big difference here is simply that they're actually going to do training exercises. But, the United States, they're guys that are sitting in the silos waiting to launch these things, aren't just sitting there playing, chess with each other. They have exercises all the time, too.
Yeah.
So, we have to be a little realistic about that.
Yeah, I mean, they could have conducted these exercises without making it public, and we would never have known what they were really doing. So the fact that they're talking about it in public is really exactly that. It's a public relations exercise.
Yeah.
Yeah, sending a message. Well, do you think that the situation in Gaza is playing into this at all? We're seeing tonight this, and maybe just get your opinion on it, but we're seeing this ceasefire deal that Hamas has said that they accept, but Israel is rejecting, but we don't really have any details on it.
Yeah, and, that happened. Yeah, it's funny how everything happens on the eve of something. That happened on the eve of, the attack
Holocaust.
on Rafah.
Yeah.
And then what does Israel do? They go into Rafah today.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also
I don't
Holocaust
think they're-
Remembrance Day, just by
Yeah.
chance. Yep.
I don't necessarily think the two events are related to each other, but it's just interesting that it's all happening today. It's been one crazy day. It's, gee, pinch yourself. You hope you wake up in the morning.
Well, I think that,
Literally.
it seems to me that what's going on with that ceasefire deal is right now, again, the pro-Palestinian Hamas side, they're winning the PR war because we don't know what the deal is. The headlines in this news cycle are that Hamas accepts a ceasefire, Israel rejects it. So Israel looks like the aggressor. Again, it's not a good look. But we don't really know why they've rejected it because they're not telling us what's in the deal. I'm sure we will find out, but maybe by the time we find out, the news cycle has moved on to the point where people have even started to forget about all this. That's kind of the way the news works.
Yeah. Hamas is winning the PR war, but, it's, I guarantee the sticking point in all this is the same one it's been for a while is, will ceasefire, Israel is, we will cease fire for a limited period of time. You release all the hostages. And, I think that is what Israel will stand on in the end. And Hamas all along has been, no, it's a permanent ceasefire. So I guarantee no matter what the deal is, that's one of the points in there, because Hamas isn't going to say, sure, okay, we agree to, 30 days or 60 days and, we give you all the hostages back. Then Israel has no reason to not hold back anymore.
Well, I mean, on the other side, the last time we kind of went through this, there was an indication that Hamas may not even have, like they wanted 40 hostages or something in the last round of negotiations, and it wasn't even clear if Hamas still had 40 living hostages to turn over. So there's that to look at as well. This is not a good situation.
Yeah. And then, of course, we have protests of Israelis in Israel protesting now that the government has gone too far. They need to stop, and they just want their hostages back.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, are there any?
Don't know. They could all be dead.
That'll be another PR win for Hamas, no matter how you look at it, because if they don't, they're going to blame Israel for, you blew up all these cities and the hostages were in the tunnels collapsed and killed your hostages. And I think that'll be one that Israel loses.
That certainly will be the way they spin it. What the truth is, again, I have no idea, because there's no way for me to know.
Right.
But yeah, did Hamas end up killing the hostages, or did Israeli inadvertently kill them when they were conducting their operations in Gaza? We don't know. We're going to get two different stories,
and we never will know. I mean, let's look at Iraq. It's just now coming out that the United States admits that was a big PR campaign, and there were no weapons of mass destruction, and so the truth will take years and years to come out, if it ever does.
Right. Well, these things, they're layers upon layers of information and propaganda, and a little truth over there and disinformation over there. And it's very difficult to really know what the heck is going on. And you're quite right. It takes years sometimes for these stories to be told in a better or clearer way. But even then, Kevin, I don't know that we ever really do get the truth on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Will we ever know what happened to John F. Kennedy?
Nope, I don't think so. And and I've said many times that there's so many different theories or conspiracies surrounding it that even if they released all of the documents, even if the truth was contained in documents they haven't released yet, people would still be so skeptical that the truth would never be recognized. So we'll never know, because those people would say, well, they still have documents they haven't released. They're secretly holding them, or that document's fake, or they'll never know. We're never going to know.
Never satisfy the conspiracy theorists.
Right. And the public loves a good conspiracy.
Yeah,
so.
And why don't people believe what they're told and what's released and stuff? Mm-hmm. It kind of, what did you and I grow up with? Our mother's telling us if you tell one lie, it'll lead to a bunch of lies, and then you become a liar.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you're lying or not.
That's right. Yeah. Here, maybe you can help us a little bit. Dragon's standing by. Let's bring him in on the conversation. He's at McGill University, and you can ask Dragon some questions about what's happening there if you like, Kevin. Dragon, sir, how are you?
I'm doing great. What's up, Rick?
I'm glad
Kevin.
Dragon?
I'm glad to see you have your Exile the Knights of Malta T-shirt on.
Well, it's my crew membership kind of thing, so I need to be gear up,
Yes. Give us the lay of the land. What are you seeing at the protest on McGill University grounds tonight?
Today it's pretty animated. I could tell you that there's some new slogan coming around. A lot of chanting with the Island of the Turtle stuff. Look, they are pretty much in fire. You can hear that from here, I think. So, yeah, it's pretty animated.
Peaceful, though?
Yep, it's peaceful. I think we cannot have any more peaceful than what you get.
Yes, I think McGill, out of all the campuses, that I've seen. McGill is maybe the most civilized protest out there. I haven't seen any clashes, or are you aware of any problems that they've had there at all?
Actually, no. I've been speaking to the police, and there's no clash. There's nothing to say about criminal activities or anything. So it was peaceful. Everyone has been basically positive in a way. So yeah, it's kind of cool.
What do you think, Kevin?
Well, I find it interesting, how peaceful it is. Now, Reagan, has there been any outside forces of, anybody other than the police there?
No, actually, the only protest that was held yesterday was just on the other building in front right there. So they were walking on the street, but it was pretty much peaceful. Nobody was making any breaking entries on anything or, no breaking, no nothing. It was peaceful.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird.
The way things should be, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things that helped there, Dragon, and you might want to comment, when this began, the administration at McGill laid out some very clear ground rules for the protesters. They said you can't post anything that is inflammatory or anti-Semitic or anti-Jewish. So they were pretty clear with everybody. These are the ground rules. You follow these, and you can protest. The only real challenge I've seen was an attempt to get an injunction, but that was filed by two students. I think they were two Jewish students. The court rejected that, and everything has been on a pretty even keel ever since.
No, actually, that's basically what you said. They had been clearing the ground on how you do that, and they were basically respecting actually the condition to have a peaceful protest, and this is what it is. Actually, I spoke to one of the policemen that is on the front, but he couldn't comment on what's going on with the dismantlement processes that might be going on soon. We don't know when, because, well, basically I got to ask on the high tops.
So regardless of where you stand on the issue, I have no problem, personally with people protesting whatever they want to protest. So as long as they're conducting themselves in a fashion like we're seeing there, I don't think that that's really an issue. Are you seeing any graffiti, vandalism, littering or garbage strewn about, as we've seen on some other campuses? It looks like everything's pretty organized and even well kept.
No, it's really clean. If I can make you just show up a little bit what's going on around on the other side. As you can see, it's kind of clean. Nobody's making any, putting anything on the ground except probably here and there, but not much. It's kind of clean. Graffiti style, what about graffitis? On my way in, on the sidewalk, there's probably one or two graffiti on, say, few posts, but nothing pretty big. So, that's probably the only thing I can add on this part.
I see. Kevin?
Gee, I have no questions. I'm just amazed that in all this news of these, police clashes and things, that it's actually being done the way it should be done. Permits and rules, and people are following them. It's amazing what happens when you talk to people and say, we'll let you do this if you give us this. Diplomacy.
Actually, I will say I'm lucky, because today I might have one person that I might be getting on interviews just right next to me. So
okay, well, do you want to take a shot and see if we'll finally maybe get somebody to talk to us tonight?
Sure. If you want to make the interview, that's right now. I mean, what's your name, sir?
Olivier.
Olivier. All right.
Dragon. Just make sure that you've got him mic'd up or something, because I think your audio comes right through your headphones. So get in close to him. I can hear him, but stand fairly close to him.
All right. So the question is, what were you doing today, or what was your part into the protest?
So I guess I had to speak in the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
As
can
much
hear
as
him.
you can.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's working
Okay.
quite well.
So I got some friends who sleep in are right now sleeping in the camp. They got their tent, and they asked me to help to install ropes and tarp, and because there was a lot of rain yesterday.
All right.
And they want to make a kind of a shield, a visible shield from there's a big gallery, and sometimes there's cops watching in the camp, so they want to make like a visible screen. So I installed ropes and tarps. So I did this today just to help for the campment infrastructure.
All right. And what's is your view on that, on the protest? What are your view on the subject?
Well, my first point of view is I'm for peace everywhere. So there's a war in Palestine. Whether I don't care what is wrong, who is wrong, what is right. I just want them to stop the war and negotiate, talk to each other. And I'm also a separatist in Quebec. So I value the fact that every nation should have their country. So Palestinians should have their own country. Israel should be their own country. So that's the two nation solution.
Right.
So I think it would be the best. Everybody have their land, and that's it.
All right. That's fine. That worked for me. Rick,
Okay.
do you want to ask him a question?
Yeah, just ask him, what he thinks of this protest, and is he surprised to see that this one is peaceful, and why does he think this protest is peaceful in comparison to what we've seen on other campuses? What's different here?
Are you surprised to see this protest being peaceful compared to the others that you've seen on the medias in general?
Oh, you mean other encampment in other university?
University, like in the United States or worldwide?
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised because in Quebec culture, we're really a pacifist culture in Quebec. We are used to be a big gathering without violence. The country is very special in Quebec because you can have like big festival, thousands of people on the streets, nothing happens. But if you go in Europe and Middle East, whether there's a big crowd, there's already some riots. So in Quebec, it's a good thing in the Quebec culture is that we are really non-violent. And even the police, the judge here, they had an injunction. They tried to add an injunction to stop the camp last week.
Yeah.
And the judge said, okay, it's a non-violent camp, so we don't order to dismantle the camp. They have the right to express themselves. So I think it's really in line with Quebec culture.
Roger. Well, that's good. I think.
And one other question for him, Dragon. Ask him if he thinks divestment, which is what the protesters are asking for, will actually be effective in achieving the goal.
Do you think the divestment will be achieving the goal here?
It's already a win.
It's already a win.
Yeah, because they already resisted to a first legal suit to expel, take them away. So, and now McGill University hesitate to order the police to take them away also. So they are there to stay. They are peaceful. Their message, it's kind of ideal situation because they can spread their message 24 hours a day. It's like a demonstration that never stops.
Right.
So for me, it's a win. So the big win will be to like the encampment could stay as long as there's a ceasefire. So that would be that their pressure along with everybody in the world would have made a difference.
But you say they are here 24 hours, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, what do you think that the neighbors think about that? Are they happy about it? I mean, I'm sure that at certain hour they don't do any noise, right? So okay.
So they're really respectful. Usually the noise stop when the sun is down. There's no fire. So usually in the night there's kind of a cinema with documentary. And I slept here last night. And about 11 o'clock there's no sound.
Okay.
But by the way, there's not much neighbor because we installed a university here. The other side of Sherbrooke is just business building.
Right.
So there's not really much neighbors and residents in the area.
Okay. So I think that's a good one.
Yes, sir. Well, tell him we appreciate his time very much. Tell him thank you.
Sir. I appreciate it, Olivier. Merci.
Thanks for your work.
Thank
All
you.
good.
It's such a Canadian protest. It's so
Yeah. It's one of those good things. I'm glad that I'm here to show you what it is, because yeah, it's one kind of a view, right? And tell you what, the world is watching. So
indeed. Kevin, any thoughts before we cut Dragon loose here tonight?
Yeah, Dragon, one question that just came up, and
sure,
you know, you're always very objective in what you're talking about, but I want to ask your opinion. Do you think a two-state solution is a doable compromise for Palestine?
Well, it depends on what that is. In my opinion, well, both could probably sit down and talk and probably agree on something. But on the other hand, how's the grudge going between them? Is that a possible way? Is that a possible come out? It's kind of hard to say yes, but I would wish that we have some agreement and probably stop the war once and for all. That's my point.
Could you maybe walk through the crowd again for us a little bit and just give us a better idea of what we're dealing with there tonight, Dragon? And I'll throw my 2 cents in on that. I don't think a two-state solution is likely to happen because I don't think either side wants it, frankly. I don't think Hamas wants it. I don't think the people in Palestine want it. I don't think Israel wants it. I think there may be other people in other parts of the world want it. I think maybe the United States wants it. Maybe we want it. But it's not going to work if those two sides can't agree on it.
Exactly. I will agree on that.
Yeah. I mean, just look at what's going on with this ceasefire agreement tonight. One side saying yes, the other side saying no. I think it's pretty clear why Israel is probably saying no. It's because they're not getting what they want. They're not getting their hostages back in the way that they want. And the other side is probably agreeing to it, knowing that Israel won't agree to it. So they're saying they'll agree to it because it's all, so it's a good PR win for them. And that's the way it's going down. So I would say the real the focus of all this isn't so much it was the process itself that is the story here tonight with regard to the ceasefire and the statements being made, not so much the outcome of it.
Yeah,
that's the significant portion of the story there tonight.
Yeah,
so just describe what you're seeing there for us, Dragon. Tell us what it is that you're observing.
Well, right now it's a kind of big crowd surrounding the chanting members and the organization. And I cannot hear pretty well what they say because I'm kind of focused on you guys, but it looks like a pretty nice chanting here. As you can see, you can see a lot of denomination. There's a lot of blending people. So, yeah, it's a multicultural thing here. Everyone's happy.
Interesting that you say it's multicultural because you are saying again that they are using this modified chant at McGill, which is from Turtle Island to Palestine. Occupation is a crime.
Yes, indeed. That's the chants that I hear often.
And for people who haven't quite figured out what that means, it means that they want all the land on North America and part of Central America, which comprises what is often referred to by First Nations here as Turtle Island, all of that land, all the way over to Palestine, including Israel, returned to the indigenous or the original occupants, because everybody else is an occupier or a settler. and a colonialist. So I'm not sure how you're going to reconcile all of that, but I'm seeing a lot of rhetoric out there right now and projections or predictions that sometime within the next maybe even 5 to 15 years, we will all be living under Sharia law right here in North America.
Yep, I can see that coming.
Yeah, I mean,
And
it's hard for people to fathom that or understand it, but I absolutely see the push toward that and the desire for people to want that here. And maybe people aren't cluing into the changing demographics in this country, but there's a definite shift there. And I can also say that while some people may dismiss what's going on within the freedom movement in Canada and certain elements, well, I should say certain elements of the freedom movement and the sovereign citizens movement, when you listen to the rhetoric and the ideology that is described there, when they're talking about natural law and a return to those kinds of principles, a lot of the rhetoric that's coming out meshes with this same narrative that we're hearing and these chants from these protesters. It's very interesting to see the convergence happening there. Any thoughts on that, Dragon?
Well, I would say that, how can I put that? It's true that right now I was feeling like being attracted into a sort of recruit station for revolutionists around. It's the way I felt. Actually, the friend I came with said it's weird how the chanting or how the rhythm of the singing kind of keep me like into the beat, even though I'm not into it. And I said to that person, actually, well, that's the hypnotic thing that they are trying to make you get to you. Actually, it's a way to hypnotize the people, so you get kind of hooked into their message, and at some point get attracted to it.
Very effective tool. In fact, it's integral in every kind of color revolution or protest. It's an extremely important element that is always used. It's the chanting. It gets the crowd sort of indoctrinated into the mob mentality, if you want to describe it that way. But Kevin, you have a background in all of this, intelligence and information warfare. You know exactly what's going on here. Can you comment on that for us and provide some greater understanding?
Yeah, well, it like you say, it gets that mob mentality going. I believe this, so I'm going to, calm you through these chants, and you will see me as the peaceful person, and I'm obviously correct then. So then you agree with me, and we start chanting this, and all of a sudden Dragon agrees with whatever we're for or against, and it just grows from there. So this is the psychological thing. We want to do what everybody else is doing, but they're doing it, these chants are meant to calm people and bring them peacefully to your side.
No, they won't. Actually, I think it's kind of bringing everyone to a war path, if you will. Mm-hmm. You want to put your boots on and just get on the ground. So,
well, I've certainly seen calls for that from some people, including some very influential people in the last week, really calling for people to rise up. And
if I may add, actually, one Quebecer, actually, I heard before I get on live, she was saying that at some point she kind of had that surge to come around and see what it is and probably actually get into it. But she realized later that her ancestry was probably like revolutionist, and not only that, communist. And it's kind of, she's going back to that little era, if you will, and it's now she's kind of integrating into that movement. So that gives you probably the idea, whereas you got some kind of indoctrination around here.
Well, I think there's a lot of truth in that, and maybe Kevin, you can comment. We've seen even on some campuses people converting to Islam and engaging in mass prayers on campuses. I have video of that I've been seeing just in the last week again. This is whatever's going on out there. It's extremely powerful. Thoughts?
Yeah, again, it's that indoctrinating people, like I say, whether it's for peace or war or whatever, it's that lulling effect. And what happens, 2-3 weeks from now when something else takes over the news cycle is, a lot of these people who converted won't be converted anymore. They, are they actually going to live what they're talking about? What did we have the similar protests and things for 2 years ago was Ukraine. Now nobody thinks about that much anymore. They want out of it, so now we have a new thing. So it's a possibility, and I'm gonna say this since you nicked me on this the other night on the show. This is my opinion. I cannot substantiate this, but it's governments distracting people from bigger issues. Do they want people thinking about nukes dropping, or do they want people thinking about, protesters out there against their policies? And what are the policies of the governments? It's kind of, they call it perception management, because they want people to think what they want them to think, and they want to distract people. So I'm not saying that's the case with the Palestine protests, but it's a similar thing. It's, again, that psychological thing.
It's a PR war also.
Yeah.
100%.
Exactly.
And you Dragon, I think you showed us even the other night, they're probably still there. You have the Communist Party with a booth set up, and it's been my view from the beginning that these protests are really coming from the political left, which is wrapping around onto the extreme political right to a degree. And a lot of these people are the same. They're perpetual protesters. Honestly, a lot of them, whatever the protest is of the day, that's where they kind of go. Whether it's a Black Lives Matter or an Occupy protest or whatever it might be. A lot of these folks, they just come out to all of them. But this to me has it has all the hallmarks of a typical left wing pro-socialist demonstration campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Well, Dragon, you're losing your light there, so why don't you give us some final thoughts and wrap up for us from McGill?
My final thought, again, it was an incredible experience to be here for you guys. Looking forward to do some more, and look, it's an adrenaline rush that I'm not coming back from.
Well, this was a great report tonight. The audio was good. The production values worked out a lot better tonight. We've had some glitches, and you got somebody on camera to talk to, somebody finally willing to overcome their camera shyness or whatever it is that was making them reluctant to appear on camera before. But we got the interview. You showed us what was going on there. This was fantastic coverage, very professional work tonight. Really appreciate it.
You know what? One day I'm gonna show you what is my gimbal, because it's a homemade gimbal that I made myself. So
no,
it's worked pretty well.
Looks fantastic, and whatever works.
Well, it takes a handyman.
Yes, and a little duct tape from the dollar store, and there you go.
Well, actually, rope.
Well, that too. Like, again, whatever works, man. Whatever works. Thank you very much, Dragon.
Wish you a good night, guys. Thanks again.
Thank you,
Have
sir.
a good one.
Take care.
And there you go. Dragon from McGill University tonight. Well, I'll throw it over to you.
It's amazing to see how it's supposed to working.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, whatever we want to call it, whatever is behind it, you know, is it real, is it not? Reality is people followed the rules. They got permission with a set of rules, and, you know, it's working that way. Let's apply that to the rest of the world now. Let's sit down and talk and say, well, these are my rules, these are your rules, and work it out. You know, that diplomacy. It would be nice to see that and see people peacefully getting along with each other and, you know, airing their differences.
Yeah, I suppose it depends on what the objective is sometimes. I think sometimes at protests, you get people who come out and want to get arrested accidentally on purpose so that they can then claim to be a victim, right? And and the reason for that is because they want to undermine public trust in, you know, police or the government or whatever. And also, you know, they get street cred within their movement. You know, I got arrested, you know, and then they become a hero, a martyr, if you will. So
I got arrested and released an hour later.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But you never hear about the releases.
Yes, that's exactly right. Well, Kevin, I think that kind of wraps up our coverage on this portion of the show tonight. I'll throw it over to you for any final thoughts.
Yeah, two final thoughts. You know, we were talking about, is the threat from Moscow having any work? I just had this come across my desk. In the Netherlands, they have announced that Ukrainian men are no longer welcome in their country. And the Italian defense minister said that sanctions are not working, and he is called to you know, have peace talks and find a peaceful solution. So, you know, something got shooken up in the last 24 hours.
Interesting. Do you think that's maybe because of the talk of tactical nuclear weapons?
Yeah. Maybe. I think we'll have to wait and see. So.
Yeah.
And the last final thought is, people, you know, talk to each other when you have differences. Look beyond what is right in front of you. A lot of what you're seeing is psychological operations. People don't like to hear that, but this is what happens. There's governments, organizations, people trying to convince you that you should perceive a situation in a particular way, and those with the loudest voice usually get the attention. I always think about back in 2014. There was news all over in the West. I was over there at the time. We had come back from Ukraine, and you know, there was news reports about all the Tatars protesting, and it turned out to be 5 guys with a television camera. You know, this was the big group, but the way people show the gatherings of people and whatnot are often meant to give you the impression that there's thousands and thousands of people, and there aren't.
Right.
So just look beyond that.
Yeah, it's important because I know from covering news for a long time that when you're out there covering a protest like that, you can make a small crowd look huge by standing far away and using you know, an extender zoom lens and compressing visually the image so you can take a small group and it makes like the small group look like it's big. You zoom right in on it, right? That's sort of the trick. And if you stand close but you pull back full wide with a wider lens, you can make a big crowd look a lot smaller than it is. It's an optical illusion almost, right? Because the lens, a 50 millimeter lens, is basically the way human eye sees. But anything else, any other kind of magnification, distorts the reality. So everything you see has some degree of distortion. And that's just one example of how your perception is altered by what you're watching.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad. See what happens when you talk?
Yeah. Gee.
Well, I'm going to continue on with other news here tonight, Kevin. I know it's like 2 a.m. You're welcome to stick around, but you might want to go and get some shut-eye.
Nope, it's 3 a.m. I'm going to go to sleep and hope there's a world to wake up to tomorrow.
Yes, sir. So let us know if you get any information on what happened with those missile strikes. I hope that you, your family, your neighbors, everybody there stays safe. And thank you, sir, for your time here tonight. As always, incredibly valuable and just extremely constructive stuff. So thank you.
Always my pleasure. Thanks, Rick.
Okay. And folks, I will be right back on the other side of this. And thank you again to Kevin and Dragon for probably the best coverage we've had on any story from the field and from Crimea, direct from Kevin's studio. So great coverage by those guys. Appreciate it. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Now, unfortunately, not every campus has been that peaceful. And tonight, we're seeing that UC San Diego protesters had a confrontation with police. Some students say the Border Patrol was also spotted on campus. I don't know if that's actually true or not, but we're getting reports tonight that as many as 64 people have been arrested, 40 of them students, which would tell us that the rest were not students. And this, of course, all happening at the encampment there. I have a little bit of video that I can bring you to give you some perspective. Here we are. This is the way it went down. And there you saw them, those protesters in handcuffs walking up the stairs in custody. Now, here, back at Columbia, law students are now demanding that final exams be canceled. They want everybody given a passing grade without taking the exams. They say that's justified because the students there, everybody there, is so traumatized from police violence that they just deserve a pass. Now, I have to say, as you can see, that is making me laugh. Just a little bit. Maybe a lot. I don't know. Okay, if you say so, guys. Here's the way it looks at Columbia. Do they look traumatized? That's okay. You don't have to do your exams. You all pass. And I guess dancing. Okay. Get back to class, you crazy kids. So that was Columbia. Now here's a Princeton student. I don't think I have to say anything. She's going on a hunger strike for Palestine. And she reads off a list of demands here. I think that the people sharing this post online, making it go viral, are doing so because, well, you can figure it out for yourself. I don't have to say anything.
Fighting any people of conscience in the Princeton community, students, faculty, alumni, to participate with the striking students in a solidarity fast. In just the last few hours, we've had commitments from at least 6 people from Princeton Theological Seminary to participate in this solidarity fast, with more coming in by the hour. At the seminary, we've also been calling our school to disclose and divest for the last several years and want to join together with the students from the university in their hunger strike. Almost every faith tradition in the world engages in the spiritual practice of fasting. The 3 major Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, are no exception to this. Jesus himself said, of some evils in the world, they require both prayer and fasting. And we are here to live into that word. Fighting.
Now, I see she's reading that from her phone. My question is she reading what someone wrote for her? Did she read that because she wrote it? Can she just speak without reading that off her phone? I don't know. I'm going to show you something else. No, this has got to be propaganda. It's just got to be. I'll show it to you. This is preparing for the Rafah invasion in Gaza, or so it says. You can make up your own mind. In a body bag. I don't know what to make of that. It looks totally fake to me. It's faking. It's a fake video about faking video to make you think that something is real. Who knows what's real anymore? But that's that's like double disinformation to really screw with your head. Isn't that weird? No wonder we can't tell what's real or not. Oh my. Okay, let's move on here. Foreign influence in Canada. The political process, elections. Federal government finally coming forward. We heard over the weekend, I reported this here on the weekend, yesterday as a matter of fact, that the federal government would be coming forward with actions to address this, which is a growing concern for people. And we just went through the entire inquiry into foreign interference in Canada. And so today, Democratic Institutions Minister Dominic LeBlanc and Justice Minister Arif Virani spoke with reporters up on Parliament Hill. They tabled legislation aimed at countering foreign interference. Bill C-70 includes a proposal to set up a registry of foreign agents operating in Canada. An independent commissioner would oversee the registry. The legislation also proposes new powers for the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. Let me share this with you. I have the minister making the announcement here, coming up. Oh, hang on. It's just a little difficult for me to cue this one, but I've got it. Trust me, I've got it. Here comes Dominic LeBlanc. Representing the Trudeau Liberals. Here he is.
And thank you for joining us. Earlier today, our government introduced an act respecting countering foreign interference, a bill which would give Canada new, modern tools to combat foreign interference. Canada is a strong, open, and free democracy. These strengths, however, can make Canada a target for those who wish to advance their interests to the detriment of our own. To achieve their aims, foreign states may recruit, witting or unwittingly, individuals to assist them on Canadian soil. They may also attempt to silence dissidents and promote narratives that are favorable to their country in a clandestine manner. Such actions constitute foreign interference. It is a deliberate attempt to disrupt the fundamental values and freedoms that, as Canadians, we cherish and that are at the very heart of our free and open society. Malgré le fait...
Okay. So we will see if that legislation passes. My guess is it will. I think it will get the support of the NDP, no problem. The Conservatives, who knows where they will come down on it. I think after it's studied more, they may have more to say about it. My guess is they'll say it's inadequate, especially heading into the next federal election. But we shall see. Today was Holocaust Remembrance Day, Yom HaShoah, and we saw the Prime Minister join an event along with other federal leaders, including Pierre Poilievre of the Conservative Party of Canada, where they spoke not just about the Holocaust from World War II, but also the events of October 7th. Let me bring this up for you. We'll start here with opening remarks. Just a brief clip from the opening remarks today at the event. At the National Holocaust Monument in Ottawa. And I believe this is it. Yes. Okay. Here we go.
Yo koso servos Bonjour, Shalom. My name is Lawrence Greenspan. I'm one of the two co-founders, along with Joel Diener, who would have greeted you on the way in, of the National Holocaust Monument Committee. I want to first acknowledge that we are on the unceded land of the Algonquin Anishinaabe First Nation territory. Those who know me know that I'm not a big fan of acknowledgement without action. I'll leave that one for another day. This year, Yom HaShoah will pay tribute to the 80th anniversary of the deportation of 440,000 Jews from Hungary from May 15th to July 9th, 1944. Most were deported to Auschwitz-Birkenau, where they were killed, the majority in gas chambers. By the end of July 1944, the only Jewish community left in Hungary was that of Budapest, the capital. Ce matin, étant donné ce qui se passe,
Okay. Lawrence Greenspan, a very famous, successful Canadian lawyer. Also there today, Justin Trudeau. I hope we still have his clip queued up here. I believe we do. Where'd you go, Justin? Here you are, sir. Okay, let's bring up Justin Trudeau again at the Holocaust Remembrance Day event in Ottawa. Here he is.
On doit l'exercer en confrontant toutes les formes de haine, d'intolérance et d'antisémitisme. As we pay tribute to the memory of the victims and the resiliency of survivors, we reaffirm our pledge to never forget. I met Pinhas yesterday at the Toronto Holocaust Museum. Pinhas has an extraordinary memory. He has contributed significantly to various Holocaust memorials, and indeed is actually contributing to an AI that will help future generations have actual conversations with Holocaust survivors. For him, what hurts the most is of all that he can remember, he cannot remember the face of his twin sister, Sabina. All he can remember is her blonde, braided ponytail when she ran over to their mother for one last hug as they arrived at the Majdanek concentration camp in 1943. The trauma was just too much for his brain. Even given this, for his entire life, Pinhas has been committed to education, sharing both his story and the experiences of other survivors. I also met Rose yesterday, a Holocaust survivor who inspires me and others with her fierce commitment to life and to peace. En parlant avec des survivants, ça m'a rappelé.
That reference to artificial intelligence being used to create a virtual reality or some sort of reality for future generations. See, future generations can have an actual conversation with a Holocaust survivor. Interesting. This raises a lot of different questions. I won't get into them here, but even just thinking about that. Who gets to have access to that? Who gets to preserve their digital avatar into the Matrix to be saved in perpetuity for future generations, to influence the future, even when you've passed on many years in the past? Here's Pierre Polyev.
Are condemned to repeat it. That is why the annual commemoration, Yom HaShoah, is so important. It is important to remember and educate. of the ugly totalitarian ideology of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, which metastasized into a bloody dictatorship, a Second World War, and, as we commemorate today, possibly the most evil attempt at mass extermination of an entire people that the world has ever seen. This, along with communist socialism, brought together two twin ideologies of the 20th century that unleashed havoc and death on peoples, often for no other reason than their race, their religion, their ancestry. Over 6 million Jews were murdered in labor camps, concentration camps, and death camps. Some of the survivors are still with us today, imparting their stories and ensuring that the next generation learns those stories. It's almost 80 years now since 1945. 80 years is roughly the life expectancy in most developed countries. So it isn't by accident that memories start to fade right about now. And as these memories have faded, these same ugly totalitarian ideologies have gained favor. And with the same hateful rhetoric, and in some cases, the same precursor actions playing themselves out today. We see at university campuses the hateful anti-Jewish rhetoric directed at innocent students. We see fire bombings of Canadian synagogues, something we never would have imagined a short time ago. I know that some of you are making the heart-wrenching decision. Do I walk outside with the Star of David on my chest? Do I wear my kippah? Do I keep my mezuzah on the door? You worry about the safety of your loved ones in Canada. It is absolutely unacceptable that you should be faced with this dilemma. You must be allowed to live fearlessly and proudly Jewish lives, and it is the responsibility of every Canadian, Jewish or otherwise, to stand with your right to do that. The hatred that we see in our streets, of course, has been amplified by the genocidal attacks of Hamas on October the 7th, almost 7 months ago. This was an attempt at genocide. It was the biggest mass murder of Jews since the Holocaust. It was carried out by an organization that had full autonomous control over Gaza and enjoyed a ceasefire. It was living right next to the Jewish state, which had vacated the Gazan lands and allowed, with perhaps some retrospective, we look back on that decision and we look back at what it resulted in. It allowed the Hamas regime to make autonomous decisions in governing that land. And as of October 6th, there was a ceasefire. And then on October 7th, Hamas carried out one of the most sadistic attacks ever witnessed in human history. The only difference between the Nazis and Hamas is that while the Nazis were cowardice and in some cases attempt to cover up their evil, the Hamas terrorists bragged about it, recorded it, put it on display on social media, took sadistic delight in what it had done. To this day, Hamas has said that if it gets the chance, it will repeat the attacks of October 7th. And that is why it is incumbent on all democratic governments to state clearly that there is only one way to end this conflict, and that is for Hamas to disarm, to surrender, and to turn over the hostages. Bring them home. Here in Canada, we must do more than speak the right words. Never again requires action, real action. It is appalling that 4 years after the anti-Semitic and genocidal terrorist group, the IRGC, killed 55 Canadians in the PS 752 attack, and 7 months after that same terrorist group helped coordinate Hamas's attack on Israel, the IRGC still operates legally in Canada with 700 agents on the ground. We must immediately criminalize and list the IRGC as terrorists today. We must establish a foreign influence registry to identify all the foreign agents that foment disagreement and division on the ground, and those that work for the Iranian regime must be exposed. We must evaluate Canada's threat assessment of terrorist attacks in light of the fact that we have had terrorist attacks target Canadian shuls. We must remove red tape and speed up access to the security infrastructure program so that we can defend all places of worship, Jewish and otherwise, against terrorist attacks. We must coordinate all law enforcement and intelligence bodies in one unified task force so that they can share information on imminent strikes so that those can be interrupted before they metastasize into a murderous attack. And we must condemn and defeat the ugly 20th century ideologies that are recurring again. It is worth noting that hate crimes between 2015 and 2022 had already risen by over 160%. That is before the attacks of October 7th. In the last year, anti-Semitic attacks are up over 100%. That is double. That means the Jewish people are being doubly victimized. Once with the bloodshed they witnessed in their homeland of Israel, and again on the streets and in their synagogues. This ideology, which seeks to divide people into identity groups, turn them against each other, and preach hatred between the peoples of our country, must stop. We must replace it with an identity, with an ideology that views everyone as an individual, that celebrates their personal character rather than denigrating their group identity. We must recognize that the Jewish people are always the first to be victims of this hatred, but are never the last. And the Jewish people who are here today who asked those terrible questions about whether they can display their Jewish symbols, from this Gentile, I have this message. You are not alone. You have friends. You have friends that stand with you, now and always. Friends that will stand up for Israel's right to defend itself. Friends that will stand with you against the ugly violence and hatred on our campuses and in our communities. Friends that will restore a Canada where you feel safe to espouse your faith in the security of your community. Friends who will be with you as always. I am honored to consider myself one of those friends. To the students who were part of the March of Living Committee. I did the March of the Living years ago between Auschwitz, the first concentration camp, and Birkenau, the most deadly of the death camps. And amid all the horror that history testifies in those places, I saw hope. There I saw young Jews placing stones on larger rocks, rocks acting as the replacement for tombstones that were never able to be laid, with the message to ancestors that we're here, we still love you, we haven't forgotten. Israeli flags blowing in the wind, the Star of David in the sky, as a message to the defeated Nazis: you will not stop us. We are still here. We are still Jewish. We sing the same songs, practice the same faith, on the same land as our ancestors over 3,000 years ago. The trash can of history is filled with those who have tried and failed to destroy the Jewish people. And once again, the Jewish people will triumph. Your friends will stand with you in this triumph, and we will say loudly, here and everywhere, never again. Thank you.
Pierre Poilievre, Conservative Party of Canada, and that, I would say, just, was perhaps the most powerful speech given there today, in my opinion, from what I saw. And he spoke of the March of the Living. I've said also from the beginning that people need to understand that a lot of what is going on in Gaza is about martyrdom. And this is why people can't understand why the conflict has unfolded the way that it has. Martyrdom. All the children who've been killed, I have argued that they haven't just been killed, they've been sacrificed by Hamas and an ideology that puts martyrdom on a pedestal. If you need to understand what I'm talking about, just listen to this exchange, an apparent recorded conversation between Israel, an IDF officer, and a civilian in Gaza. The IDF officer warning the civilian that they need to get out of the building they are occupying, their home, because an attack is coming, and if they don't leave, they will be killed. The civilian doesn't want to go. Listen to this. I'll read the text on the screen because it's not in English. It says, the blast radius will be immense and will put your life at risk. This coming from Rami, the IDF officer. He says, you need to evacuate the building with your family and move away half a kilometer. All right? How many are you? How many people live in your apartment? The response coming from someone named Abu Yunus, a civilian in Gaza, says, we are a big family. The IDF officer, all of them must evacuate. How many people are there? Abu, the civilian, says, each family has around 20 people. How many families are there? Asks the officer. 3 families, says Abu, the civilian. Okay, says the IDF officer, inform everyone that we'll wait until everyone evacuates. But we don't have much time left. Okay, Abu Yanas? To which he responds, we are far away from the bank. Listen to me, this is dangerous, says the IDF officer. You all need to evacuate the building and move away a half a kilometer. Everyone, including the elderly and children. The blast radius will be immense. He says, my dear, I'm unable to evacuate everyone. I'll need a minimum of 2 hours before I can evacuate them all. He says, brother, we will proceed with the strike, regardless of whether you leave or not. He says, strike us then, do as you please. Do whatever you want. Rami, the IDF officer, says, we must do everything within our means to prevent any fatalities. To which Abu says, we want to die. Rami says, you are responsible for ensuring the safety of the children. Abu says, and our children also must die. Rami says, no, God forbid. You want to become a martyr? Is that it? Abu Civilian says, indeed. So we can expose your brutality to the world. May Allah curse you. Your actions will lead to consequences. Proceed as you desire. The IDF officer says, Abu Yunus. To which the civilian continues to talk and says, don't try to convince me, I won't leave. Go ahead and strike the bank, our homes, or any location you want. Do whatever you want. The IDF officer continues, Abu Yunus, you want the children to die? To which he says, if you wish to spare the children, refrain from striking the bank. Why would you strike the bank in the first place? It's just a bunch of walls. Rami says, this is not up to me to decide, Abu Yunus. I'm being honest with you, it's not up to me. What's up to me, he says, is to warn you. I want you and your children to live in peace. Abu Yunus, civilian in Gaza, says, we don't want the peace that comes from you. Rami, the IDF officer, says, if you remain in the building, it will be considered suicide, which is haram. Your Quran forbids it until about the 1970s. The Quran, you know the Quran, says Abu Yunus? Rami says, you are cursed in the Quran anyway. And Abu continues, do whatever you want, my dear. Everyone wants to die from our side. We love death the way you love life, he says. We don't want the kindness that comes from you. Notify your leaders at the IDF that Abu Yunus refuses to evacuate the building. Do as you please. Rami, the IDF officer, says, fine, then I'll let them know. That chills me to the bone. And it tells me that I've been right about that from the very beginning, and I wish I was wrong. And that recording, I believe, is authentic. Always the potential that it was not, but in that case, it definitely has the ring of truth. I'll be right back.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Yeah, and I see a couple of people in the chat. Well, I think there's John. And of course, John is saying that it's fake. But you know, John, my friend, it's easy to dismiss things that are an affront to your perspective when they blow up your reality. It's an uncomfortable truth sometimes that does that. And it's a mistake to not leave yourself open to varying points of view and be selective in the truth that you choose to embrace. And it isn't just that call that backs up what I've been saying. It's the writings of Hamas and leaders from the Islamic community. And a change in ideology, intelligence reports, a change in ideology dating back to the 1970s, giving and people permission and encouraging martyrdom, which is why you began to see an increase in hijackings and other terrorist attacks beginning in the mid to late 1970s and wrapping up since then. Politics, religion, bundle them together and you get something very volatile indeed. And that's what we're dealing with right now. Politics and religion meshed together. And other things too. Let's all pray for peace on this, what is it, the 6th day of May, 2024. The world's gone mad. The inmates are running the asylum, and they have nukes, mini nukes, ready to deploy, apparently. It's hard to believe we're even talking about that. But here we are, witnessing history repeat itself, or at least, at the very minimum, rhyme. The clock is ticking, but we still seem to have some time. I hope we figure it out before it's too late. I will be back tomorrow night, folks. Same time, same channel, Maverick News. Stay safe, love each other. Catch you on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.